It's episode number 4 of the Know Your Playing series, and it's time to cover one of the most remarkable original aircraft of the Ace Combat series. The one aircraft that holds the distinction of being the very first original superfighter of the Strangereal timeline back in the year of 1995. And of course, we're talking about the ADFX, also known as the Morgan. The ADFX Morgan made its first and only Stranger appearance on the PlayStation 2 title Ace Combat Zero, the Belka, where it was the original superfighter of the game and the enemy boss on the very last mission. Other than that, the ADFX was also featured in Ace Combat Infinity on the PlayStation 3. However, the plane wasn't featured in the story mode of the game. In the Strangereal timeline, the two ADFX prototypes were built by the South Belka munitions factory just prior and during the Belka War. Prototype number 1 fell to the hands of the Allied forces after the conflict, while prototype number 2 was captured and used by the terrorist group A World of No Boundaries at their last stand in Avalon Dam. In the Infinity timeline, the ADFX was being developed by an unknown country within the Federation of Usea. However, during Operation Eternal Liberation, the United Nations forces obtained the blueprints of the Morgan and finished its development, although the Usean forces also got their own Morgan operation. The ADFX Morgan is characterized by its short forward swept wings and vertical stabilizers that point to the center of the aircraft. To assist the pilot in controlling the aircraft, the Morgan features canards and a very peculiar placement of the air brake just between the two massive engines, who are capable of taking the fighter to a top speed of over Mach 2. Despite its powerful engines, the Morgan lacks stability at lower speeds given the short wings, but nevertheless, it was one of the most advanced fighter jets of its time. Perhaps even more advanced than its flight characteristics are the weapons deployed by the ADFX, including the famous TLS, Tactical Laser System, capable of sniping enemy aircraft out of the sky with a single beam, the multi-purpose burst missile, which results in large explosions relative to its size, and they can be remotely detonated, and lastly the electronic countermeasures pod, which, although it's not a weapon per se, can defend most of the aircraft against missiles, with the exception of the two large, almost triangular air intakes. Although what I said so far applies to the ADFX Morgan prototype number 2, the one flown by Pixie in the last mission of Ace Combat Zero. Prototype number 1, the playable version, was slightly inferior in terms of performance compared to the final boss, but still had the one-hit, one-kill laser. However, the Infinity versions of the Morgan were severely nerfed to adjust the aircraft due to the multiplayer focus of the game. We'll talk more about the different variants of the Morgan further along the video, but now let's talk about some numbers and specifications related to the performance of the aircraft and make a size comparison with the F-22 Raptor. The ADFX Morgan has 23.9 meters in length, a wingspan of 15.7 meters, and a height of 5.7 meters with its gear extended, or 4.6 meters when the gear is retracted. With these numbers, you can see that the ADFX is considerably larger than the F-22 Raptor, but their weights are fairly similar, with an empty Morgan weighing a total of 19,600 kilograms. The ADFX is powered by two large WWX-GD401 engines, an improved version of the 400 series engines, and its maximum speed is over Mach 2, although no exact number is given on official reference material. In addition, the Morgan's effective combat radius is of 1,200 kilometers. Let's also not forget some of the Morgan's weaponry. Besides the center missiles, the ADFX is equipped with the GIL 30mm nose cannon, the Zoisite tactical laser system that is mounted just above the aircraft with some support pillars, the Hypersteam multi-purpose burst missiles, and lastly, the Morganite electronic countermeasure pod for its defense. In Ace Combat Zero, the TLS has enough energy to fire 7 laser beams for a duration of 4.5 seconds each, with a negligible recharge time. As for the other weapons, the Morgan can carry 8 MPBMs and activate its ECM pod 8 times. As for the Infinity variant, I will not go into detail because of the different levels in the game. But now that we've mentioned, let's talk about the different variants of the Morgan and what sets them apart from each other. There are a total of 5 different Morgan variants, 2 in Ace Combat Zero and 3 in Ace Combat Infinity. First, let's go over the original planes in Ace Combat Zero, where they have the prototypes number 1 and number 2. Prototype number 1 is the playable version of the aircraft that did not fly officially during the Balkan War, but instead fell to the Allied hands sometime during or after the conflict. Meanwhile, prototype number 2 is the enemy boss aircraft flown by Pixie in the last mission of the game. This aircraft had a reinforced airframe and was capable of carrying all the 3 special weapons at once. In addition, the special weapons were also improved. The tactical laser system was now able to track and redirect its laser beams against enemy targets, the MPBMs could be remotely detonated, and the ECM system would protect all of the aircraft with the exception of the 2 engine intakes. In the Infinity universe, our first variant is the ADFX Block 1 aircraft. This variant relates to the development phase of the airplane by the UNF, hence you can see the prototype paint scheme. It is believed that due to the similarities between the paint scheme of the ADFX Block 1 and the Sukhoi 57's flight test paint scheme, that the ADFX was being developed by Russia. However, this has not been confirmed. Given that the Block 1 variant was just a prototype, it has the worst stats and performance amongst all of the variants. It also has a slightly shorter TLS beam and limited ammunition. The other variant is the regular and the second playable version of the ADFX. This variant is the mass production model of the aircraft by the UNF, and as mentioned previously, it has improved performance compared to the Block 1s. Lastly, we have the enemy ADFX-1, which is the Usean version of the aircraft. This plane only appears at the SOG Interception Level 3, and its TLS is equipped with a tracking and beam redirection system. All in all, the 3 Infinity versions were nerfed due to the online component of the game, especially the tactical laser system. Now that we've got the different versions of the plane covered, let's talk about the lore, starting with the Ace Combat Infinity universe. During Operation Eternal Liberation, the United Nations Forces operation against the newly established Usean Federation, the UNF uncovered plans for the development of the ADFX Morgan aircraft. It is unknown whether its development of the plane had started before or after the formation of the newly established Usean Federation, but by the time the UNF got hold of the plans, Usea still had not built its own prototypes. With the plans on hand, the United Nations built some of the units of the ADFX Block 1 for testing purposes, although some of them did see combat during Operational Eternal Liberation. After combat testing, the United Nations started to mass produce the ADFX-1 for combat. This new version was superior in performance and was able to carry more ordnance. However, the UNF wasn't the only organization operating combat-capable Morgans. The Usean Federation also continued its development and fielded the Morgan that was even more advanced than the UNF's. The Usean version had an improved tactical laser system that was capable of tracking and redirecting its laser beams to its targets, just like the laser pod from the MQ-90Ls employed by the Butterfly Master. Adding to that, the Usean variant was also capable of carrying the multi-purpose burst missiles together with the TLS. However, it's important for me to mention that you only see the Usean ADFX-1 if you play on the SOG Satellite Interception Level 3. Now, with the Infinity universe covered, let's talk about the lore in the Strangereal universe with the original story behind the Morgan. The early 1980s were marked by an intense rivalry between Osea and Yuktabani during Strangereal's Cold War. In order to guarantee its safety if a war between these two nations were to break out, Belka started a massive militarization project which included development of the V-2 Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, Excalibur, a powerful ICBM shield powered by lasers, and the XBO Heavy Command Cruiser. In addition, the Belkan Air Force initiated a program to develop its next generation fighter aircraft. Thus, the ADFX program was born on January 4th of 1985. While there isn't much information about the ADFX program between 1985 and 1995, we know that Belka entered in a serious economic recession in 1987 due to the massive military spending. Therefore, it is safe to assume that the ADFX program was delayed due to the lack of funds and the prioritization of other programs such as Excalibur or the XBO, since these two superweapons were operational by the year of 1995. However, what we do know for sure is that 2 ADFX prototypes had been completed by the Belkan War, and as hinted by the debriefing of Mission 11, the prototypes were probably assembled at a South Belkan munitions factory facility in the city of Hoffman. However, despite completion of the prototypes in 1995, the two planes did not see combat during the Belkan War. Prototype number 2 was stolen from the Belka military after the Balkan War by a terrorist organization, A War of No Boundaries. This plane only saw action on December 31st of 1995 as the last stand effort by the terrorists who took control of the Avalon Dam facility, which was secretly a V-2 launch facility. The Allied forces led by the mercenary GOM squadron were successful in destroying the V-2 launch complex, but they suffered heavy losses. The terrorist ADFX number 2, piloted by Larry Folk, also known as Pixie, former member of the GOM squadron, arrived late to the battlefield and was able to shoot down GOM 2's aircraft, killing the pilot instantly with its laser. The number 2 prototype was specially modified to launch a hidden V-2 in the last attempt of the terrorist organization. However, the aircraft was shot down by the leader of the GOM squadron over Avalon Dam, which automatically destroyed the V-2 missile in the air. Pixie managed to survive the engagement, but the prototype aircraft crash-landed in the nearby area. Sometime after the battle, the South Belka munitions factory, now named Grunder Industries, went after and located the remainings of the ADFX-2. The team from Grunder was able to collect the data from the plane's flight recorder and used it to create the ADF-1 Falcon. Meanwhile, the ADFX prototype number 1 was confiscated by the Allies and ended up in Ossia after the war. Reason why we can see the ADFX number 1 flying over November City in 2011 during an air show alongside the ADF-1 Falcon and the X-2 Wyvern. And that is the last thing that we know about the ADFX in the Strangereal timeline. The 3 special weapons of the ADFX are named Zoisite, Hypersteam, and Morganite, which are 3 different types of minerals. But perhaps more important than the nickname of the special weapons is the nickname of the plane itself. The name Morgan is yet another reference to the legends of King Arthur, which is throughoutly referenced in Ace Combat Zero. More specifically, Morgan comes from the character named Morgan Le Fay, meaning Morgan the Fairy. Now, the legends surrounding King Arthur vary a lot by author, but in one of the early accounts, Morgan is a healer who helps King Arthur to recover in the Isle of Avalon. However, according to other sources, Morgan is King Arthur's half-sister. In some books, she can even be the main anti-hero, just like it happened in Ace Combat Zero, where Pixie was Galmus 1's brother in arms, yet came in the end as the anti-hero over Avalon. This concludes our episode on the legendary ADFX Morgan, the first original fighter jet in the Strangereal chronology. Now, if you want to know more about other original Ace Combat aircraft, you can check my episode on the X2 Wyvern right here. Special thanks to Acepedia for the help in this video, and a quick hint on the next episode. I will be covering a real-life aircraft that is not a fighter, attacker, or multi-role. But can you guess which one? Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and see you guys next time.